begin with, I want to give you a quick overview of how this stuff fits together. Part of the reason behind doing this, because I've become so annoyed by reading guides and tips and tricks to doing answer engine optimization, LLM optimization, much of which is completely wrong. And I think it's helpful to have like a basic understanding of how this stuff fits together so that you'll be able to spot when someone's actually telling you something useful. So AI and search share a lot, even when the AI tools aren't explicitly using the search indexes, search engine indexes. So they're trying to do the same thing. They're using the web as an information source, and they're trying to answer questions or deliver information appropriate to the context and the intent with which they're asked. They deliver the answers in different ways. So big difference with AI models clearly is they synthesize all these different information sources into a single answer instead of listing them for you. So you can make your choice about which page or passage to go and have a look. In order to do that, they have to give more weight to certain types of signals, trust signals, we'll call them. Particular for whether they decide to cite, that is mention and perhaps link to the information source they found, which in terms of AEO optimization is the primary consideration along with accuracy of information. This has also impacted how search, organic search works slightly. So if we think about classic search here on the left and AI platforms, so classically, you know, your content, your page is the destination, and now it's just source material. I would argue all of the rest of these things, like 2, 3, 4, the page as a main unit of competition is now a passage, like an excerpt within a page. Click-through as a success metric rather than citation and brand reach. Well, that's AI specific. But the others, link and authority signals, keyword targeting, moving to something different, all of these have been happening anyway within search. Measurement is different. Measurement is more complicated. But a lot of what we see in terms of AI search and optimization for it is actually SEO. So if we look at some of the things that was happening in search before AI platforms, already Google was using specific passages from a page rather than a page, using them explicitly in answers, moving away from keywords mapped to pages to looking at how entities and semantic clustering work in order to understand the meaning of a question and give a meaningful answer, and making much more use of structured data and schema and so forth in order to surface stuff in the search results. So we've had 10 years of this kind of move. So as an SEO, most of what works for AIs is already, it's stuff we already know about, even if you're doing or we aren't doing explicitly on your website. The AI tools, whether they're Google or ChatGPT or whatever, are using the same logic, essentially, applied at scale and with synthesis, like this synthesized answer, rather than the classic results. That's the big difference. It has meant that organic search has shifted slightly because of this. One of the things that might surprise you, Google search usage, and we've seen this in the States, but these are UK figures, is going up. People are using it closely in tandem with AI tools and moving between one and the other. There's quite a lot of research on this, which I won't, like a lot of things today, have time to go into in any detail. But of course, click-through rates are down, you're getting less traffic. Zero-click search, so you're appearing in search results or you're being used as a source, but the question is being answered directly within Google AI overviews or AI mode or whatever, so you're not getting any clicks. Users are also starting to use more AI-type questions in search. So the length of what people are typing into search is increasing. Still not as big as long or as specific, but it's getting that way. And in terms of ranking, quality score thresholds, which is one of the key ranking metrics that Google uses of whether for your site to appear in the search results for a particular phrase, are increasing, and there's more emphasis on unique content and EEAT signals, which we'll come to in some little detail. Banging this on about this a bit, but it's really, really important. AIs mostly don't have their own information sources. Right? To an extent, some of them are slightly building their own very limited web indexes. But they're getting their information from search index APIs, Google and Bing, Brave also. So Google AI Mode Gemini has access directly to all the Google indexes. ChatGPT uses Bing and also Google. Copilot uses Bing, both Microsoft. Claude uses Brave Search, So if your content isn't crawlable and indexed and extractable by search, it's completely invisible to AIs anyway, for the most part. AI platforms do also have their own crawlers, as you'll know if you look at log files and so forth. They come in different types. Training, so that's building the language model, which they'll update then every 6 months or a year. So if you're a council or a site that's an information source, you want to make sure that your sites are being collected in those ways. If you're a publisher, maybe not. You know, it becomes a bit organization specific. They do a little bit of their own search indexing, and then live fetch. So this is if they've been asked a question, they need to come to your website, which they do under very specific circumstances. So I'm not going to read this. These slides will be available afterwards. Search indexing, a lot of people think, right, Google grabs your page and just keeps like a record of it. It's not really how it works. There is a thing called an inverted index, which kind of lists everything on the page. There's also a passage index, which just collects little passages, little chunks, sections about a specific subject, essentially. An embedding. This is more technical. I won't go into it in detail, but it's how it knows what the meaning is. And when on Bing or Google you do a search, it's using a hybrid of all these different indexes in order to deliver your results. It's also applying quality score. So domain authority, page experience, etc. It's like a gatekeeper of whether that page then appears in search results. This becomes really important, particularly for something like ChatGPT. So how does an AI system do an answer? So first of all, it needs to decide, do I need to do a web search? For our purposes, let's just concentrate on all those answers where it does. First of all, it will take your question and it will expand it. So you might ask, what is an ethical bank? Right? It will then turn that into somewhere between probably 5 and 20 different sub-questions that attack it from different angles. What's the definition of a bank? What is Triodos's current account? What does Money Saving Expert say about this? So it quite explicitly name sites because it knows that they have authority in those. And then it will send those questions to the search index. It will then get a load of results back. So Google is direct. For ChatGPT, etc., they will get it from the search API. So if you remember before, what comes through the search API already has all the Google ranking signals applied to it. So they get quite a narrow subset. Then it does reasoning and selection and assembly and all sorts of things. If it decides it needs to, it will then go and visit your page. There's quite a lot before an AI decides to go and visit a page to look what's on there and grab that content. Even if it does, it doesn't necessarily use it. And it certainly doesn't necessarily then cite it as like, I have been to Money Saving Expert, here's a link. It will cite only the most useful and credible sources when it provides an answer. So there's all these kind of hurdles to jump. And this is really just a diagram of what I've been talking about. So Google here on the left, everything's kind of direct, but for ChatGPT, Claude, etc., they do the query fan out, they get the results back from the APIs, then they may do a selective full page fetch, etc. What do they get back? When they do the search, what do the search indexes give them? It's very little. It's a page title, it's a URL, it's a short passage for the thing that they've been looking for from the passage index, and an age signal of how old the page is. See, Google has access to everything in the Google indexes. It's a bit more of a black box. But they're making decisions based on quite a small amount of information, which is important when you're thinking about how you optimize for it. So that's the how, or the why rather, the background to it. If you understand that, hopefully, a little bit more than you did 15 minutes ago, then the what to do should make more sense. So for AIs in particular, you need to make your content extractable so it can actually be taken from the page. Selectable, so that when it gets these different options, it chooses you to be part of an answer. And citable. So most of the time, an AI would use different sources. It's not going to say, unless it's been explicitly been told to by you, I got this from Money Saving Expert, or I got this from CPAG, or Harrow Council. In order to do that, you need to do more optimization, which is a sort of additional step that we wouldn't bother doing for SEO. So there's various steps to this. First of all, technical optimization. So this is mainly for developers. Crawlers need access to all those bots I mentioned. You might decide to block some of them for organizational reasons. You might well decide to block all sorts of other LLMs coming from Singapore and China and so forth. But they need to have access, including CCBot. I haven't mentioned it before. Common Crawl Bot. Common Crawl is a completely free, non-proprietary web index that's used particularly for training models by the AIs. You can see, you can block them with robots text. You can see in your web logs whether they have access. Cloudflare has a particular setting for being able to allow and disallow. It's extremely important. I had a client, an American client, and they were under some kind of bot attack. And so one set of their developers who manage the servers decided, without telling anyone, to block all bots. And we had noticed this 2 weeks later when their search traffic completely collapsed. And it took weeks to get back to having search engines index their traffic and show it in search results. You need clean indexing. So that's, there's a slide I haven't got here today of a client where Google's trying to crawl 3.5 million URLs on a site with 10,000 pages. So that's a technical thing. You don't want them going off in all sorts of paginated directions. Stable folder structure, logical folder structure, and things like canonicals and 301 redirects in place, lack of broken links, etc., etc. Time to first byte speed. Speed is a big gatekeeping metric for search, and it's even more important for AIs, particularly when they do that live fetch. In fact, only when they do that live fetch. You should be aiming for a time to first byte speed of between 100 and 300 milliseconds, which is pretty quick. But in terms of technical optimization, apart from like all the core stuff you should be doing anyway for SEO, I think as a developer, that would be the main thing I would be aiming for. Clean semantic HTML, so that's H1, H2s, H3s available in terms of the page structure. not hiding content behind JavaScript rendering because it makes it invisible to AIs, and schema. So we'll talk a bit more about schema and which kind of use, but you need to make it available, ideally JSON schema for the pages. Contrary to what half of the web seems to be telling you, markdown versions of pages, llms text are completely useless in terms of AEO optimization, except in kind of specific cases where you might expect AI agents to come to your site and you want to tell them explicitly what to do. So if you've got a restaurant table booking site and you want to tell the agents how to go through it and book a table, write that in a markdown file. Or if you've got a software as a service thing and you know that AIs are going to come and use your software, explain to them exactly how to do it. Otherwise, ignore it. AIs won't even look at this stuff anyway. Markdown pages, you also have risks if you do decide to serve them, that if they're not absolutely 100% synced with what's on the page, it's going to look like cloaking. And if your site looks like it's cloaking, you're going to get hit by huge search penalties, Google search penalties. Content. Most of the optimization is around content. First, audit for out-of-date, superseded, duplicate, contradictory content. So AIs, if you think about they're having to synthesize answers, they're having to take different bits of content and produce a single answer. If you've got stuff that's contradictory, even on your own site, it's going to ignore it. So the classic one for this would be figures. We have 5,000 members on one page, and it says 7,500 on your about page, or something like this. Anything contradictory. Now, they're not stupid. If you've got on your about page, we've got 5,000 members, and it's got a last updated date of last month, and then somewhere 5 layers down, you've got a PDF from 2018 that says 1,000 members, it's going to ignore the PDF. But the more work you make it do, the more tokens you make it use, the less likely you are to be cited. EEAT, I'm going to talk about in a little bit of detail because it's extremely important. You need to demonstrate authority, trust. Trust is probably the biggest one for AIs, and freshness. So like recency of content. Topic clustering is like a completely SEO concept that's also really important for AI. So I'll talk about that. And commodity content. I'll explain what that is. Within reason, you need to be not producing it, improving it, or replacing it. In general, like your website should be curated enough that it's based around a set of topics that you cover in great detail, clarity, and authority, and not have anything else on it, essentially. Get rid of stuff that's out of date, get rid of stuff that's not core, say. I've left this link in because it's a really good and recent blog from Google on content quality for AI, for their AIs. And I know that we'll be sending the stuff around, so I do suggest reading that. EEAT, so this is a core concept for the quality score in whether you get ranked by Google. It's becoming more important, and it's absolutely fundamental for AIs. Experience, expertise, authority, trust. There's a million places you can look this up, and Google have written extensively on it, so you can do that by yourself. For AI tools, it's extremely important for getting cited, not just having your formulate the answer. If you're not explicitly trusted, you won't get attribution. Experience and expertise are primarily page level content. We'll talk about that a bit. Authority is primarily domain level things. So does your site have loads of backlinks? Do lots of other websites say nice things about you? How old is your domain? Da, 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 da. Trust is probably the core concept here, and that's both at the domain level and a page level. We'll talk a little bit about how to demonstrate trust and the others. So the basics for EEAT, I would say, have strong about and media or press pages. So these are the places that all kind of bots will go immediately to find out about you. Don't fill them full of waffle and marketing and fluff and so forth. Say what your organization is, have good contact details. Actually, I haven't put there. Given the audience, I haven't talked much about e-commerce. If you're doing e-commerce, you know, you need shipping and returns policies, etc., really high up. Your privacy policies, terms and conditions, etc. Media and press pages, a very good way to show AIs and search that you are being cited by other places, right? Make it really simple for them to see, oh, right, the Guardian says we're great, or we've been put here, we've been put there. Keep those up to date. Organizational schema, I'll talk a little bit about schema in a bit. Things you might not be doing at the moment, published and last updated dates on content. Freshness, age of content is a really big signal. Don't make them guess about what the date of the content is. Named authors, again, this is much more important than it used to be. They want, all systems want to see named authors, ideally linking to a bio page. You can kind of get away with editorial team if people don't want to be named authors. But bio pages linking to people's LinkedIn profile. It's basically showing I'm an expert on this, expertise, authority. You need to evidence all the claims you make. You need to reference the data. You need to date figures. This is within content. Ideally, you want to be showing first-person experience and real voices. This is all the experience part of it, right? And then on YMYL content, you need disclaimers. Michael, what is YMYL content? Well, I'm very glad you asked. Your money, your life is a Google term. It's for information that could significantly impact a person's health, financial stability, safety, etc. YMYL content has a much higher bar in terms of particularly trust, right? And authority, expertise. So directly YMYL, you know, anything financial, medical, so forth. There's a lot of stuff that's adjacent. So I see Tom here from Fair Tax Mark. They're a tax campaigning organization. That is YMYL adjacent because it's financial. So it might not immediately spring to mind. Or Philippa from CPAG, you know, benefits advice. So you've got a high bar of, you know, fitness equipment if that's what you sell. But a lot of you here, particularly councils, your content is your money, your life. So even if you think, oh, we're an authority, we're recognized as an authority, therefore we must be trustworthy, you need to make it explicit that you're trustworthy. It's very important, particularly if you want to be cited. Topic clustering. I think this is maybe one of the harder things at first, but actually it's really simple. Your site is about stuff, right? There would be a load of core themes that it is about. Those are your core topics. There will be subtopics below those. And then below those, there probably ought to be subtopics. They should all link to one another. I say all your sites should be like this. Most of the sites I come to are not. They think, oh, we've written a page on that. So that covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that page is about, without thinking in terms of a user. So I'm struggling in my head to think of an example. But For example, ethical banking, right? So if someone wants to know about ethical banking, if you're a search engine or an LLM, someone types in ethical banking, you're thinking, what do people want to know about that? They might want a definition. They might want to know a list of ethical banks. They might want to know who's got what accounts. They might want to know how it relates to fossil fuels or to ISAs or to right? Your site should also cover, if you're talking about ethical banking, all of these subtopics. If you're talking about worker cooperatives, you should have what is a worker cooperative, examples of worker cooperatives, first person lived experience of being in a worker cooperative. So quite often we think this is the information people want, we'll give them it, without thinking about the related stuff around it that actually people are searching for in great volumes, and you're missing out on huge amounts of search traffic, A. But then for AIs, when they're formulating an answer, instead of coming to 3 of your different pages to formulate that answer, they can only use one of them, and they're having to go to other information sources. So I actually have put an example. That was brilliant. I'm not even reading my own slides. So a cluster on disability benefits, like benefit types, claims processes, advice providers. And when you interlink between your different pages, it has a huge multiplying effect in search indexes, also for AIs. So this is an example of a not very good site in terms of topic clustering. A client. The different colors are different clusters, right? And it's all over the shop. Absolutely terrible. So, like, you could probably sit down with a pen and paper and actually look at your own site and go, we should be writing more on this, this, and this. But you can also find out topics. Look at your Google Search Console query data. What are people actually asking that's bringing them to particular pages? I bet you for high traffic pages, there's 3 or 4 sub pages there that are just really obvious. You use Google People Also Ask, use SEO to them. Don't just create pages, create images and video around it as well. Like if you want to rank in Google AI mode, you want to be doing YouTube videos around this stuff as well, not just on your site. We'll come to that a little bit. An internally link between the pages with contextual, descriptive, editorial links, which have always been really important for search. But, you know, the link says list of disability benefits advice agencies, not find out more, right? Let's put like this. So, you know, maybe you'll improve it to something better than this even. So this is slightly better. This is more what a site should look like. I've only got 5 colors on here. It's quite a small site. But you can see these clusters. This is kind of representation. This is based on how the internal links are, not like a navigational structure or anything. This is how search engines and bots see your website. Commodity content. What is it? It's stuff that's really easy, repeatable, and replicable on another site. Basic human knowledge, easy, like 7 tips for washing your hands in COVID with Lewis Hamilton, or some, you know, surface level secondary research, anything that lacks depth, personal experience. So it's not spam, but if you've got a lot of it on the site, it will hurt your domain authority. It also makes it harder to index the good stuff. So, you know, you shouldn't be going, right, let's get rid of all that right now. Sometimes it's useful around topics, right? You end up building stuff that isn't particularly unique. But helpful content, and I name it that because of Google's helpful content update, so we know it's a ranking signal. How might you build stuff that's a bit more? So real questions and answers from customers or members, or if you're council service teams. Content based on your own data. Like you will know stuff that you haven't thought of turning into like press work or data or anything, or original research. Any unique perspective or specific cases you have, or additional context you can add. First-hand knowledge and experience. So what can you do that can't be found elsewhere? And AIs can't just stick into a generic answer, that they have to kind of go, this is from these people. And in multiple formats, video, image, etc. From page optimization, so this stuff you kind of ought to know: logical semantic structure, tables, lists, last updated date, really important. Talked about author, alt text. Content optimization for AEOs. This is content editors. Core content high in the page. There is, like, content higher in the page is more likely to get ranked and rated and used in AI answers. It's just the way it is. Think too long didn't read, like an inverted pyramid. Council's really good at this generally, and a lot of other types of organizations are not. Answer first structure, so headings as questions, questions as headings. And again, even within a single section or passage, right? Put the core answer, like the thing you're actually saying, and you're then explaining afterwards at the top, directly underneath the heading. Write concisely. Make it so that if paragraphs are taken out of context, they still make sense and they're still accurate. Question answer formats, lists, table structure, comparisons, high quality, all these things they like. And then for experience and trust and so forth, first person voice is brilliant. Define terms, citations and references, dates for figures, disclaimers and so forth. Build trust. Be really explicit about this. You can put it at the bottom of the page if you don't want to put it right next to everything, but do it. The other thing is regular reviews of key pages. This is what I talk about, making sites a bit smaller but more up to date. ChatGPT in particular, most of the stuff it cites is less than 12 months old. In certain YMYL areas, less than 3 months old. Right? That's very, I know content editors are sitting there thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this, right? There's no time to do this. You need to convince people that it's necessary, frankly. It also affects search rankings. What does last updated actually mean, though? It means reviewing a page and checking the figures, dates, and then the really key info. If you've checked that, you can update the page with a new date. And that's warrantable. As I say, you should be aiming for like really key pages, 3 months. Schema. How are we doing for time? Got 5 minutes, I reckon. Okay. Schema is not a ranking signal, but it does make it much easier for search engines and AIs to know what your page is about. Makes things quicker, makes it more citable. You can ask the developers to implement schema so that you can then use it. It's also really important for voice search. So core schema, the stuff you absolutely have, organization, in your organization schema, link to your social profiles, your company's house or charity registration, whatever, demonstrate who you are, breadcrumb, and page type. And at a minimum, like your homepage, about page, and author pages need schema on them. They're the absolutely critical ones. If you don't have that, you're not going to get cited probably, unless you're absolutely outstanding in your niche. On pages, this is also really worth doing as well. So date published, mentioned many times, publisher name, author name. You can specify an audience. I like this, but it's very optional. And defined terms. So this gets into a little bit of stuff that I don't have time to talk about now. But if you're talking about a tax haven, tell it what a tax haven is. If you're saying this is a shopping guide, tell it what a shopping guide is. Right? There's all sorts you could be using. There's specific ones for government services and councils and so forth. A lot of this is more advanced SEO and takes quite a lot of time, but these basic ones. So again, just for Tom, here's just an example of what might, this lives as code at the top of your site in the header. Tells you, this is our organization, this is the URL, this is what we do. This page is an article, this is its headline, this is who wrote it, this is its date published. It's really kind of basic, but really important. Offsite signals. This is more kind of for comms teams, right? But you need to make sure on an organizational basis that your social media profiles or Wikipedia thing aren't saying different things about you to your about page, right? Google My Business Profile, etc. Ideally, you want to be checking directories, review sites, rating sites, that they've got accurate information on you. Again, you don't want discrepancies or contradictions appearing. And then in terms of actual outreach, like to help you be cited in AI tools and search rankings, you want to target and produce content or engage with people on third-party platforms. So YouTube is pretty critical for Google for very obvious reasons. Reddit, ChatGPT uses Reddit all the time. They have an agreement where they crawl Reddit and so forth. They pay a load of money for it. LinkedIn is really important, particularly for business-to-business type stuff, organizational. There's no real point in doing it unless you think your audience is also there. But within your particular niche or industry or what have you, there will be particular sources that are regularly used by LLMs as sources of truth. Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube are the most common. But if your audience isn't on Reddit, don't use it. Right? You don't do this just for optimization. Measurement. Measurement is interesting. Measurement for SEO is really simple, right? In one way, we're looking at traffic and outcomes from that traffic. Now we've got lower search volumes, increases zero-click impressions, which you can find in Search Console and so forth. AEO is really difficult to measure. You're looking at visibility, like, is our content appearing? Citations, are we being cited? What's the impact of it? So typically, like, being cited isn't going to bring you traffic directly. People aren't going to click and come to your site very much. What they are likely to do is come to your site more frequently because they know who you are, and you also get kind of pre-qualified traffic. So it tends to be much higher value when it does arrive. You can do prompt tracking in AI tools. If you like, there's a lot of tools, specific tools available, which are really expensive generally, because you need to like figure out, okay, we want to know where we are in AI mode and ChatGPT and Perplexity or something. And here's the 30 search terms or 100 prompts I want to track. And I'm going to have to do each of them 20 times because every time you do it, it comes back with a different answer. And I need to do it across all those platforms, and I want to do it every week. So I won't go into this too, because this is probably not this audience, and we're running out of time. There are ways to do this, and there are some basic ways to do this, but measurement just got a lot harder. I'd say as a first step, if you want to optimize, you need to do some audits. Technical, your content strategy, which you should be looking at anyway, the breadth, the topic clustering, and how much is unique versus commodity. And then specifically around AI readiness, you want to be looking at content quality, age, consistency, relevance, or a content audit from that point of view. Your content design, language use, formatting, you're using the hierarchy on the page, and specifically around EEAT. Are you using author's dates? Are you referencing properly? What's your voice? Are you using schema? What are the offsite signals? Oh, it's just, there's a lot of studies and a lot of expertise around there. And much of it is unverifiable, self-promotional, or contradictory. We're really wary of a lot of this stuff. It's a lot of in-house studies from SEO companies saying, oh, if you change these 3 words or, blah, blah, blah. Most of it's like nonsense, but it's not, it's not repeatable. And you can't go chasing stuff because AIs aren't good at something at the moment, because they're getting really good at stuff. So don't try and aim for what they're weak at, because it would be redundant within a couple of months or weeks. If you want help, because we're a digital agency, you want AI readiness reports or helps with audits or SEO training or services or whatever, you can contact me specifically or Agile in general. Thank you.
Brilliant. I think we have a few minutes for